Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the group conversation for Enablement. I am Joshua Lambert, the group manager for the section, and joined by John and a number of the other members of the section. And so thank you, everyone, for joining. And thank you to you all for taking the time. I know we're approaching the holidays here, so appreciate folks joining and hopefully asking questions. We don't have any questions just yet, so I might talk over a couple quick slides to give folks a chance to review them and ask some questions. But if you still don't have any, we'll perhaps end a bit early as well. So quick reminder, we are streaming live on YouTube. So keep that in mind when asking questions, and I'll try to keep that in mind when answering them as well. All right, so since we don't have any questions yet, I will share really quickly and talk through a couple slides. And we'll see how we're doing in a few minutes. Okay, so hopefully folks can see my slides here, and we'll just walk through these pretty quickly here. For folks who aren't aware, the enablement section is not a DevOps stage, but it is responsible for a lot of important features of our product. This is how everyone installs GitLab, updates it, ensures it's scaling and running well, as well as able to find content and integrate with it. So it's going to be our distribution, geo, ecosystem, memory, search, database teams, and you can find us down below in those different groups. So essentially, everyone uses GitLab. Everyone uses the features that the implementation works on, even though the end users might not necessarily be aware of it. The administrators certainly are, and it's a very important part of our product. Here's our product categories. Another quick note here is that not all of these are what we would call marketing categories. So you won't see all of these on the home page, but we do try and keep track of a number of them from a maturity standpoint and follow the general processes, even though things like the memory team and database team don't have a category to speak of, but they are doing great work to make sure that GitLab can continue to scale and it can improve our performance as well. Really quickly as well, here's our maturity progress. We have made some updates since our last GC, so do take a look at that. Also really proud of our velocity and our community contributions to this area as well. So looking forward to those continuing to grow, but some great progress there within the section. We've also made some progress on hiring. As you can see from our chart there, the team has grown significantly towards the end of this year. We do have a number of positions still open, in particular on the product management side. So we just are opening up the memory PM position this week. We're still looking for search and infrastructure PMs. I would say it's been challenging to find PMs who are deeply technical for areas like infrastructure and memory. And so if you know folks who have product management experience and are technical in those areas, that would be really helpful. And please do refer them. We'd love to chat. Another quick update here on our SMILE and PI. Note that these charts are out of date. You can follow up more on the issue there. They're essentially unchanged from our last GC, but we have had some progress in adding additional telemetry to our section. So the ecosystem team recently added telemetry for all integrations, or what we call project services. This will help us understand which are being utilized and will help us prioritize improvements in the future. So looking forward to that. Those haven't added are now coming into the usage ping database, and now we need to get the fields into DBT, into Snowflake, and then of course have dashboards opened up. Really quickly here on our major priorities, these haven't changed much since our last GC, so we're still focused on much of the same things, making sure our customers can easily deploy our reference architectures, including things like HA and Geo. So we've making progress here recently with our Terraform provisioner. We're also working on finishing up the last few steps of our Red Hat-based UBI images. This is important for our US federal customers, but also we had a number of other folks who were interested in Red Hat-based images as well. And so we're looking forward to getting this finished up and essentially a fully supported and ready to use part of our cloud-based deployment and our Kubernetes deployment of GitLab. So we were actually, initially when we were starting out this project, wanted to consider using Red Hat, but at the time the license didn't allow running Red Hat containers on non-Red Hat systems. That has changed. And so it's great to get this done and available for our customers who would like to prefer those base images versus our other ones. We're also really going to be focusing on Postgres 11 support. We want to make sure that we can set that as the minimum required version of Postgres in 13.0. And so we really need to get the support in, make it opt-in, get some comfort, make it opt-out early next year, and then have enough runway still to make it required in May. And this will allow us to take advantage of features like partitioning and to really improve the performance and scalability of .com as well as our largest customers. So that's really important to get done, and we're focused on trying to get that finished up here in our distribution team. I'll jump over to our dogfooding updates here as well. Again, folks can dive into the details on other slides in detail. We'll get the questions here once we finish the dogfooding updates. But we are working on rolling out Geo and staging at GitLab.com. You can see the progress being made there. Thanks for everyone on the Geo team as well as the infrastructure teams for helping out with the project. We're also looking on the future deployment to production, but we have encountered a few interesting challenges, in particular, some interesting use cases around like failovers of the HA database in production and what that means for the secondaries that are following the wall logs. So more details are available on the issue, but we're encountering some interesting edge cases that are good to solve. And this goes to show just how important it is to dogfood your features because it helps to illustrate some of the challenges that can happen when running in a really high scale environment where things of this nature happen not frequently, but they do occur. So it's good to get that done and kind of understand these problems for our customers as well. We're continuing to make progress on Puma, and so we're having running on Canary. We'll hopefully continue to deploy across the fleet here soon. We might delay kind of a more serious deployment until after the holidays, so we aren't doing kind of SRE work in between. But we're really getting close to having this on by default for all of GitLab, and then we're working to also advertising it likely in this release post to encourage folks to opt in to Puma and get some comfort level on their instances. So we can get some further data points before we go ahead and make it on by default for everyone. All right, so with that, I'll stop sharing. You can read the detailed progress and upcoming features for our other teams down below, but we'll jump over to questions. That was around 6 minutes or so. So we'll get back to our questions and I'll stop sharing if I can find the Zoom button to stop sharing. There we go.
Cool, I think I have the first one, Josh. So in slide 7, and Rachel's answering the question in lines. Thank you, Rachel. I just wanted, generally speaking, we get great marks for our upgrade experience, and I was wondering if you had thoughts on additional improvements to that. Rachel pointed out that the links there were mostly about Geo upgrades, but I'm also wondering your thoughts on our general upgrade experience, if you think there's significant investment, additional investment in improving it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of facets to it. One is to make sure that we in GitLab test our complete architecture on updates when we do them. We had a couple problems recently where if you had Geo and you had some of the change in the distribution that you could bump into some problems. And so that's one of the real main priorities for the kind of that Terraform provision I mentioned earlier, where we actually get a complete architecture with HA and Geo up and running. We can test them within CI. The other benefit here is that for customers who are running an HA deployment, we really don't give them any tools to deploy that or update it automatically. So we don't give them any IAC. Our professional services team has a tool which they can leverage called Proliferate, which can do that for them. But for another folks, for example, at the CAB, they wrote their own Terraform scripts. I think that's kind of necessary. Ideally, folks can just take ours. They're tested. We use them internally to test, and so we know they're good. And that way they'll get a robust, tested Terraform script out of the box that they didn't have to write themselves. And that way we know it works and they can do the right steps. Because if you take a look at the upgrade steps for HA and Geo and doing zero downtime upgrades, there's a lot of details in there, and you can get it wrong. And so we want to make sure that we can provide something that really reduces that risk for our customers. So I think those facets, and then also the just the continued thought and care we put into the features and changes we make around Postgres 11 updates, around Puma, or other work, where we really try to make sure that we think through all the edge cases and test them, and put in the effort to try and make sure if there are edge cases like Puma and Rugged, that we have a good solution for them, and we try to avoid any kind of negative impacts on upgrades. And so it's actually a lot of investment on a lot of areas to just try and make sure that when they do an upgrade, it will just work without having them to go figure out what happened, a performance degradation, understand we made a change to Puma over here, and then you need to go change our worker count or something like that. So we really try and invest heavily to try and avoid those situations. So I think just continuing to do those types of things across the whole product is important. Does that help? Maybe answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Imagine they should look through, yeah, awesome. I think I covered most of Rachel's comments there. Yeah, and Jackie, thanks for that. Looking forward to Sunjog Park joining, and we can do some more UX scorecards and do some more deep dives on the experience and some of the potential problems of our documentation and general processes as well. So that we're looking forward to that. Simon, you want to vocalize your question?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask, but so I was just wondering if we had a request to support a new platform for omnibus installations, for example, the new ARM architecture, so the Graviton processors on EC2, where would be the best place to request this and track the discussion and prioritization of that task, and kind of keep an eye on it and make sure it doesn't kind of get forgotten about. I've linked an issue in the docs that relates to that discussion.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely the Omnibus project would be the place to have that issue open and tracked. It might also be worthwhile having an epic as well, so we can have a approach on both Omnibus and on the charts, because we probably would also want to make sure that our container images also had ARM64 binaries available. And so I would probably do both those things, the charts and the Omnibus, and then have an epic which ties them two together. Would be ideal. And I would say that we have been getting increasing requests for ARM64. I know the runner team just got that merged for the runner, which is fantastic. I think it'd be great to collect some more data on exactly how many folks are really looking for ARM64 based on US GitLab. But given some of the data that Amazon released on essentially the cost efficiency of these instances, I imagine we'll probably get some more interest here soon. So that'd be great. And thanks Jason. Yeah, and thanks, Jason, for opening up some additional ones there, or linked additional chart issues and things like that. Paul, would you like to voice your question?
Yeah, thanks. I just want to know if we had evaluated the impact of how much it would cost to roll out Elasticsearch to paid users on GitLab.com.
Yeah, guys, you're probably the SME here. Would you want to jump in and answer, since it looks like you're on the call?
Yeah, so we haven't looked at it for paid users, Paul, and the reason for that is the cluster size required is relatively small. It's about, I put the number in there. It's a small set of data. It's about 7 terabytes for paid users across the board, which is smaller than our logging clusters that we use, the same kind of Elasticsearch infrastructure. So there's certainly a cost. And it would be good to go back and do that, so we can take that as a follow-up just to understand what the impact is there for paid customers. It is a feature in starter tier, which is why, or in starter for self-managed, which is why we've decided to do this for paid customers for the parity across the board. So it's something that we should be accounting for there. So I'll take an action.
Sure, but in a self-managed environment, the customers are paying for the Elasticsearch component.
Correct. Yes, that's true. So yeah, we'll definitely come back and figure out the cost there.
So I think could we enable it, but have a separate way to bear the economic cost of it?
In .com?
Yeah.
The way the indexing works is it's sort of like an all or nothing. So there's not necessarily an option for customers to like bring their own Elasticsearch cluster to GitLab like there is for runners or something like that.
Sure, but you could pay for an add-on to your subscription that would allow for essentially a bring your own type environment.
Yeah, it's something we can look at. We'll do the homework on the numbers for .com for the paid users to make sure we're not creating some unnecessary burden on the margin there. And then if we think we need to take a step back and reevaluate, we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, it's super important because Elasticsearch is a very expensive tool, and it does tend to grow really, really fast. It's a great feature of their business model, but one that we need to consider for our own products and margins.
Sure. Yeah, we'll go take a look at that. And then I just put a note in there that for the rest of .com, it is something that we're actively concerned about because of the size for running it for all of .com and rough estimates on costs that we've gotten there, and we're not even in a position to even begin to forecast or estimate what that might look like. But it is something we're thinking about for all of .com. We did not necessarily consider that as much for paid, so we'll go take a look at that.
Okay, let's be careful about how we position it with customers prior to having that rolled out. It could be a revenue recognition issue as well.
As far as telling folks we have it, or just
Yeah. I mean, we're saying that we have it. It's in. It's not in. It's not ready yet. So it's let's just be careful how we message it and what we're committing to.
Okay, thanks. One note there on slide 17 is that we have linked to an issue on that kind of that third bullet point down on ways to try and reduce the cost for Elasticsearch. So we've got some ideas identified there. I'm not sure if you have an idea of like what the 7 terabytes of data for Elasticsearch would be. I imagine it's fairly minimal for the paid users.
My understanding is it's like it should just be a few $100s a month for that data set, based on what I understand our lagging clusters to operate on.
But Paul, we'll get back to you on this and in more detail and continue the conversation.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for raising the point. Okay, I think that's the last question. We'll wait, at least in the document, we'll wait a couple more minutes to see if folks have any additional questions. And if not, we can wrap up a little early. If you have a question, feel free to just voice it over as well. You don't have to wait to write it down.
I'll voice it over and I'll type it after I finish voicing over. My understanding that one of the, I don't know if you would call it key metrics for the memory team was reducing our overall memory footprint. How do we feel like we're doing on that?
Yeah, so one of the major improvements there would be Puma, which we're working hard on deploying. I believe that we're seeing around a 30% reduction in memory utilization with the switch from Unicorn to Puma. It does depend on where we land, I think, on how many threads we're going to run for every Puma worker. With the GVL or the GIL for Ruby, it can be challenging to really crank up the thread count too high. I'm not sure if Craig or Camille is on. Trying to find them. Craig is on. Craig, want to add more detail there?
No, I think you got it right. We're seeing 25 to 30% based on the optimal configuration that we've tested with so far. So just with Puma. And then some of our Sidekick worker processes, we're continuing on working on reducing the memory footprint on those. So we'll have more information and more numbers when we wrap up the 10X initiative late in January.
Yeah, for folks who aren't aware, the GVL or GIL is the global interpreter lock, which basically means that Ruby interpreter will only execute code on one thread at a time. And so you can get benefits through multi-threading when a thread's blocked on IO or something like that, but you really can't have multiple threads executing kind of instructions on the CPU at the same time. And so that's why we see a sort of reduced benefits continuing to increase the thread count because it starts to impact the responsiveness of GitLab. So because eventually you now have threads that are essentially trying to get compute done that then get interrupted for the next thread, and it just continues to have an impact on latency. So that's why some of the challenges we're trying to thread the needle on here with our correct thread count, default threading level for Puma.
And we'll continue to iterate on memory reduction and look at next initiatives next quarter. We're looking at things like incorporating WebSockets and looking into how we can better isolate processes to help with memory and contention issues.
Any further questions on memory, Kenny, or did that sufficiently?
Yeah, that helps. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. Okay, if there's no more questions, I think we can wrap it up a little early here. Thank you everyone for attending. I appreciate it on sort of getting close to the holidays, and have a great rest of your day and week. Thanks.